The man cut the mouse into 80 pieces. Then he stitched them all back together. Incredibly, the mouse was still alive, and its blood vessels flowed perfectly. The chief doctor beside him was utterly stunned. This wasn't just about stitching flesh and skin. He had to reconnect the severed blood vessels with 6 to 8 precise stitches. Too few, and the blood would leak. Too many, and the flow would be blocked. Across the entire province, you could count on one hand the people capable of this. Yet Ling Ran was just a first-day medical intern. Normally, interns only practice on bananas. So for their first real operation, most freeze up completely, just like the dozens of students standing behind him. The chief doctor assumed he must have trained at another hospital. Ling Ran quickly explained it was just his family's small clinic. In truth, it was a beginner's gift from his medical system. After such an astonishing performance, the education department director immediately asked which department he wanted to rotate into next. The interns were all stunned. The hospital was notoriously strict. Even PhD candidates weren't allowed to choose their own departments. Before Ling Ran could decide, the system suddenly issued a task: suture wounds for 10 patients. Reward: interrupted vertical mattress suturing technique. Having tasted the system's benefits once, he wasn't about to miss out again. He immediately chose the emergency department, the only place with a steady flow of patients. His roommates pitted him, asking why he'd pick such an exhausting department. Only the director gave him an approving look. But to Ling Ran's surprise, once he arrived at the ER, all the interns were dumped into the break room. To make matters worse, several resident doctors were also waiting to snag surgery opportunities, trying to gain some experience before assignments were finalized. There was no chance for the interns to step in. 2 hours later, a nurse suddenly burst in, shouting, "Who here can suture?" All the interns rushed forward, yelling me, except Ling Ran, who calmly stayed where he was, making him stand out even more. The nurse pointed straight at him and called him out. He thought he was finally getting a real case, but ended up doing chores, cleaning wounds, injecting anesthesia, small stuff like that. After several surgeries, Ling Ran noticed the lead surgeon looked tired, so he carefully asked Dr. Zhou, "May I finish the suturing?" Dr. Zhou didn't refuse. After all, suturing was a simple procedure. Rarely anything could go wrong. It was the perfect chance for him to take a short break. But just 2 minutes after closing his eyes, Ling Ran had already finished. Dr. Zhou snapped awake. "Kid, don't tell me you rushed it just to show off." But when he looked at the patient's hand, he immediately fell silent. In all his years in the ER, he'd never seen someone stitch that fast and that flawlessly. He couldn't help wondering, was this kid some hidden master from a small-town hospital, here to polish his resume? As he was lost in thought, a nurse burst in, nearly crying. "Dr. Zhou, the patient in bed 3 needs you right now." Turned out a gang boss had taken a blow to the head and needed stitches. The moment Dr. Zhou saw the wounded boss surrounded by a dozen burly gangsters, his hands trembled. He couldn't even hold the forceps steady. So he turned to Ling Ran and said, "How about you handle the suturing?" Such a golden opportunity. Of course, Ling Ran wouldn't refuse. He immediately took the tools and prepared to operate. But the gang boss wasn't having it. "You're sending a rookie to patch me up? You think I'm a joke? If the stitches go wrong, your hospital's going down," the gang boss growled. But before he could finish, Dr. Zhou pointed behind him. "Your wound's already stitched perfectly." He signaled the nurse to bring a mirror. The boss was stunned. "Damn, you stitched faster than they cut me. Didn't even feel a thing. From now on, we're coming straight to you." Saying that, he stormed out with his men, not even bothering to wrap the wound, heading straight for revenge. Less than an hour later, the same boss came back with another injured man, specifically requesting Ling Ran, the intern. The wound crossed over a tattoo that meant a lot to him, and he begged Ling Ran to restore it exactly. Ling Ran slowed his pace, stitching carefully, every line precise, every thread aligned. Just then, a resident doctor passing by caught sight of him. Recognizing Ling Ran as the new intern, he fumed. How could a rookie be operating alone? But the moment he saw the stitches, his mind froze in awe. The sutures looked like they were drawn with ink. He hurried over and apologized. "Dr. Lin, I thought you came with the interns. Didn't realize you were a part-time surgeon." Ling Ran simply shook his head. "I'm just an intern." The resident didn't dare treat him like one anymore. He even handed over several upcoming cases to Ling Ran. By the end of the afternoon, Ling Ran had completed his rookie mission. On his way home, Ling Ran couldn't stop smiling. The day had gone perfectly. When he finally returned to his family's small clinic, his father immediately nagged, "Finish your internship fast and come back to help. I didn't inherit your grandfather's medical skills, so I had to hire that Dr. Xiong." But Dr. Xiong kept asking for pay raises every few weeks, and the clinic was barely staying afloat. Just as Ling Ran was about to brush it off, a middle-aged man suddenly burst through the door. It was Mr. Yang, the noodle shop owner next door. He had sliced his hand while cutting noodles. Dr. Xiong rushed over to check, frowning as soon as he saw the wound. "You'd better head to the hospital," he said. "It's too deep. I can't handle this." Ling Ran slipped on his white coat and interrupted, "The palm's only cut, not severed. It's not that serious. I'll take care of it." Right at that moment, the system chimed. "New mission. Treat Mr. Yang's hand and achieve satisfactory results. Reward: 1 basic chest." Dr. Xiong scoffed, thinking Ling Ran was showing off. "Kid, you're still an intern. Don't overdo it. Let me disinfect, and we'll send him to the hospital." But Ling Ran was already setting up the surgical tools. "We'll clean the wound first, then apply anesthesia," he calmly told Mr. Yang. "It'll hurt a bit, but it'll reduce the risk of infection." He then called the clinic's only nurse, Zhuanzi, to assist. Though it was just a suture, the cut had reached the tendon. One mistake and Mr. Yang might never hold a knife again. For Ling Ran, this was a real test of skill. After more than 10 minutes of careful work, the procedure was complete. The onlookers couldn't help exclaiming, "That's beautiful stitching." But Dr. Xiong was frozen in place. As a professional, he knew even a trained resident doctor with years of experience couldn't suture that perfectly. Ling Ran thought the system task was finally complete. But suddenly, Mr. Yang's son barged in. Seeing his father's hand already bandaged, he didn't say thanks. Instead, he shouted, "You dare operate in this dump? If my dad's hand doesn't recover, I'll sue you into the ground." Ling Ran calmly replied, "There's always a small chance of incomplete recovery, but it's very low. As a doctor, if I have the skills to treat him, I can't just let your father keep bleeding, can I?" Still furious, Yang, who insisted on taking his father to the hospital for a recheck. Ling Ran glanced at his system panel. Sure enough, the basic chest reward had vanished. He could only wait for the hospital's results. After seeing the father and son off, Ling Ran's father was about to close the clinic. Just then, a young woman appeared at the door. He explained, "Sorry, doctor's off duty. If you're sick, go to the hospital." But the girl wasn't there for treatment. She was looking for Ling Ran. Her name was Lu Jinling, the sister of the tattooed man he had treated earlier. To thank him, she brought a whole fresh salmon. She planned to drop it off and leave. But when she saw Ling Ran's bright smile and calm charm, she froze in place. She insisted on cooking it herself, preparing fresh salmon sashimi for them. Ling Ran's family tried it and was amazed. It tasted far better than anything from the market. It turned out that nearly all the salmon in Manhwa City was supplied by the Lu family, making it much fresher than the imported kind. Just as Ling Ran was enjoying his meal, the familiar shouts of the Yang father and son came from outside. It turned out even the experts at Yanhua Hospital had praised the sutures. Flawless, they said. To apologize, they had even ordered a custom silk banner of gratitude. Ling Ran's father was overjoyed and immediately decided, "Starting tomorrow, you'll take clinic duty." Terrified by the idea, Ling Ran fled back to the hospital early the next morning. His system tasks were getting tougher, and with too few patients at the small clinic, he couldn't possibly complete them. For example, today's mission: complete 10 treatments to earn 1 basic chest. But as an intern, he usually had no access to that many cases. Just as he was worrying, a nurse burst into the room. "All residents, gather outside." Ling ran too. There'd been an explosion at a factory on the outskirts. Many wounded were on their way. The hospital quickly assigned Deputy Director Hua Sung-jun from the emergency department to lead the rescue. Originally, only residents were called, but Dr. Zhou personally requested Ling Ran to assist. Otherwise, interns wouldn't be allowed to join. Soon, waves of injured workers flooded into the hospital. The critical cases were rushed straight into the emergency room. Dr. Zhou handled the minor wounds, stitching as fast as he could. But the flow of patients was endless. There just weren't enough hands. Finally, he handed one patient over to Ling Ran. The man had multiple deep and shallow lacerations running across his leg. The patient's wounds required several different suturing techniques. Yet within 10 minutes, Ling Ran was already done. Dr. Zhou, still uneasy, hurried over to check. When he saw the finished stitches, his eyes went wide. This level of skill was God-given. But his shocked expression scared the patient. "Doctor, did something go wrong?" Dr. Zhou quickly reassured him. No, it's excellent. Honestly, this could be used as a teaching model for interns." He immediately told the nurse to take photos for the case file. Then he announced, "From now on, Ling Ran will handle sutures on his own." But he added firmly, "You're not allowed to pick patients yourself. Wait for the nurses to assign them." Ling Ran frowned, confused. Wouldn't that just increase their workload? Dr. Zhou's tone turned serious. "In mass casualty events like this, there are too many injured. If you start choosing patients on your own, within minutes you'll be surrounded. It'll throw everything into chaos and slow down treatment for everyone." So Ling Ran waited by a bed, letting nurses bring each patient in one by one. With his own workspace secured, he quickly completed 10 consecutive treatments. Excited, he opened his basic chest, only to find the same as before, stamina potions. "Do I have to open a dozen of these to get something good?" he muttered. But time was running short. The senior doctors were still handling the critical patients, and once they finished, they'd surely reclaim the cases. To keep things moving faster, Ling Ran suggested bringing in his intern roommates to help. Ling Ran divided the wound treatment process into 3 stages: cleaning, suturing, and dressing. Dr. Zhou assumed he was just trying to give his roommates more practice, so he didn't object. But to everyone's surprise, once the 3 began working together, their teamwork turned the process into a seamless assembly line. Efficiency more than doubled. The only slowdown came from the nurse calling in patients one by one. So she simply had them line up outside the door, entering one after another. In just over 2 hours, nearly all the wounded had been treated. Yet Ling Ran still didn't want to clock out. He was only 2 cases away from unlocking 4 more basic chests. While he was waiting in the break room for new patients, his phone suddenly rang. It was Lu Jinling. He instinctively thought her brother had gotten hurt again, but she quickly clarified, No, he's fine." Ling Ran frowned. "Then what is it? Did your brother hurt someone? Or did you get hurt?" The question made Lu Jinling blush crimson. "He's worried about me? What do I say now?" Without thinking, she blurted out, "Someone here's injured. Can you come help?" Then she glanced sideways at one of her men, who was slurping noodles beside her. The gangster blinked in confusion. "Wait, who's injured?" From that day on, the mob princess began manufacturing excuses to see the intern doctor. Every day, she'd beat up her 108 underlings, pick 50 of them herself, and personally drive them to the hospital, always insisting Dr. Ling has to be the one to stitch them up. Thanks to Lu Jinling's enthusiastic assistance, Ling Ran quickly completed his system's beginner missions. What Ling Ran didn't know was that his record of stitching 50 patients overnight had already spread throughout the hospital. Before long, it reached the ears of Deputy Director Hua Sung-jun from the emergency department. In surgery, there's one golden rule: never sacrifice precision for speed. He was about to do a routine inspection when he caught sight of Ling Ran suturing a wound. His movement steady, his technique textbook perfect. For a seasoned surgeon, that level of precision was expected. But for an intern who had only learned from books, it was extraordinary. After all, no 2 wounds are ever the same. Real sutures rarely follow the manual. And yet, after more than 10 straight hours of work, Ling Ran's hand was still rock steady. Calling him a genius was no exaggeration. Most of Hua's irritation faded away. He decided not to scold the young man. Instead, he told Dr. Zhou, check on the patients he stitched. If all's well, let him assist in surgery tomorrow. The room fell silent. An intern assisting in surgery? That was like hitting the medical lottery. But Ling Ran's focus was elsewhere. His system had just popped up a notification. Achievement unlocked. 50 consecutive sutures. Reward. 1 intermediate chest. After work, he couldn't wait to open it. Inside was a rare skill book, capable of upgrading any basic skill to perfect level. According to the system, skill ranks were divided into proficient, master, and perfect. His current suturing skill was already master level, one of the best in Manhwa Hospital. If upgraded to perfect, there might not be another surgeon in the entire province who could match him. The skill book could instantly raise a basic skill to perfect level. Using it on suturing felt like a waste, so he decided to apply it somewhere else. But when he opened the menu, all he saw were the most fundamental surgical operations. Still, any surgeon who could master all 6 basic procedures would be considered elite. After some thought, Ling Ran chose the one he used most often, hemostasis. To his surprise, it had 4 subtypes. Since he worked in the ER, manual hemostasis was clearly the best choice. As soon as he confirmed the upgrade, the skill rose instantly to perfect level. Even so, Ling Ran continued to visualize and rehearse the motions in his mind, until he drifted off to sleep without realizing it. The next morning, he overslept, almost missing Director Hua's morning rounds. Though it didn't scold him, the first ward he visited was Ling Ran's. Ling Ran quickly reported, patient is female, 19 years old, previously healthy. She sustained a large laceration on her elbow from stair fall, so I used a 15 mm number 0 suture. This minimizes scarring and preserves future limb function. The knots are raised slightly to cushion tension before the scar forms. However, due to partial skin loss, knots must not be tied too tight, otherwise blood flow would be compromised. The doctors behind him burst into applause, and Director Hua nodded with approval. Did everyone understand that? He asked over his shoulder. Then his tone hardened. Good, but none of you are allowed to imitate it. There are many ways to cover scars, sleeves, tattoos, whatever. But as doctors, your first priority is healing, not aesthetics. Ling Ran can do this because his technique is exceptional. The rest of you, focus on closing the wound properly first. Hearing that, the girl on the bed looked at Ling Ran with grateful eyes. Instantly, the system chimed. Achievement unlocked. Patient gratitude. Reward, 1 basic chest. The ward round soon ended, and as everyone prepared to rest, a nurse rushed in shouting, car accident victim, needs immediate surgery. Director was spun around and headed straight for the OR. Just then, a resident came running up with the latest report. Patient has a 20-centimeter open abdominal wound, displaced ribs on the left side, and severe bleeding. Transfusion underway. Reading the report, Ling Ran quickly assessed the situation. The patient's vitals were stable enough. It was a level 2 critical case, manageable. But while Director Hua was speaking with the family, the unexpected happened. The bleeding wouldn't stop. Even hemostatic injections failed. Exploratory laparotomy was the only option. Yet no one dared to confirm if the bleeding source was actually in the abdomen. If they guessed wrong, the patient would suffer 2 incisions instead of 1. Just as Hua was hesitating, a nurse shouted, "The patient's in shock. Any longer and we'll lose him." Ling Ran didn't think twice. He thrust his hand straight into the open wound. Every doctor in the room froze, horrified. They thought he'd lost his mind. But in truth, Ling Ran had used manual hemostasis, pressing directly on the ruptured liver. The patient had lost so much blood that his life was hanging by a thread. Yet the moment Ling Ran's hand pressed down, the monitors stabilized. Bleeding stopped instantly. Director Ho reacted immediately. "Hold that position," Ling Ran. "Everyone else, start the operation." For the next 2 hours, Ling Ran served as a living clamp, keeping pressure on the liver wound. When the surgery finally ended, his hand was completely numb. Who didn't praise him. Instead, he asked coldly, "How did you know the bleed was from the liver?" Ling Ran replied calmly, "The abdominal cavity was exposed, and without blood typing, I could only judge by the flow pressure and direction." Ho was secretly astonished. That kind of composure and diagnostic instinct rivaled top surgeons. A true prodigy. But outwardly, he stayed stern. "Where did you learn that technique?" Ling Ran forced a smile. "At my family's small clinic." He definitely couldn't say it came from the system. As they spoke, Director Ho personally examined the patient's liver. To his astonishment, after being held for 2 full hours, there wasn't a single trace of trauma. It turned out Ling Ran had plugged the bleeding point using the inner pad of his pinky's second joint. His remaining fingers were gently curved, supporting the liver's position to prevent secondary damage. Hearing that flawless explanation, Ho was left speechless. Even he couldn't have executed such precise control. So he handed over the next step, closing the abdomen, to Ling Ran. The assistant doctor froze in shock. He'd been working for a full year before being allowed to do his first closure, and even then, his hands had been trembling the whole time. But Ling Ran remained perfectly calm. His hands moved with fluid precision. Each layer of suturing was neat and deliberate, not a single wasted motion. Before long, the closure was complete. The assistant's eyes nearly popped out. Was this natural talent? He was just about to sigh over the unfairness of life, when a thought struck him. This surgery could be turned into a research paper, publish it in SCR, and he'd be famous overnight. But before he could speak, Director Ho called out, "Ling Ran, can you write a paper? Base it on your manual hemostasis case. Write me an outline first." Before Ling Ran could answer, the system chimed, "New mission, write a medical paper. Reward, intermediate chest." Ling Ran's heart leapt. His manual hemostasis skill had come from that same chest. There was no way he'd miss this one. After surgery, he finally headed to the office to rest. But as soon as he walked in, every single colleague turned their gaze toward him. The moment Ling Ran entered the office, everyone backed away as if they'd seen a ghost. It turned out the patient's family had recorded his manual hemostasis and uploaded the video online. His colleagues all admitted he was incredibly skilled, but they also knew if that kind of stunt ever failed, it would destroy not only him but everyone around him. No one wanted to take that risk. Still, it didn't hurt his reputation. In fact, more patients came to see him than ever before. The video's comment section was overflowing with praise. People were calling him a miracle doctor. Yet, pinned at the top was a long, 100-word criticism. As a doctor who has worked on the medical front line for decades, this is one of the most reckless acts I've ever seen. Attempting manual hemostasis without surgical visibility, few doctors in the entire country would dare. One mistake, and it's a medical disaster. The comment was signed, Dr. Chi Junhai, Specialist, Provincial Hospital. Ling Ran recognized the name. Chi was a respected figure throughout the whole Changsha province. Only then did he realize why Director Ho was so eager for him to write a paper. In the medical community, a paper isn't just a credential, it's both sword and shield. So after his shift, Ling Ran skipped rest and went straight to the library to gather material. He burned through several bottles of stamina potions in the process. By the next morning, his outline was complete and submitted to Director Hua. At first, Hua thought he just scribbled something to get it over with, but when he read it, he was stunned. The logic was clear, the structure precise. Ling Ran had even added an extra chapter, bleeding point identification under no-view conditions. It not only justified his previous action, but elevated the paper to an academic masterpiece. So Director Hua assigned Vice Director Du, the department's top paper writer, to personally guide Ling Ran. But instead of praise, Ling Ran soon found himself facing the threat of expulsion from the hospital. The instigator? None other than the provincial hospital's renowned expert, Dr. Chi Junhai. Chi had long been at odds with Yunhua Hospital, and now seized the chance to attack, accusing Ling Ran of improper manual hemostasis. To defend his student, Director Hu secretly invited Director Liu from the Army General Hospital to the upcoming inter-hospital consultation. However, Hu didn't mention Ling Ran right away. Instead, he began by reporting on the factory explosion cases. Most patients were recovering well, though 2 remained critical with 80% burns under Dr. Du's supervision. Ever the blunt and fair man, Director Liu immediately criticized those 2 cases should be handled by younger attending physicians. With conditions like that, it may take months of vigilance. Older doctors don't have that kind of stamina. He finished speaking and started to leave. Will quickly stopped him. Director Liu, there's one more case you haven't seen. He played the video. Ling Ran's manual hemostasis operation. Liu froze, eyes wide. That technique. It deserves to be in a textbook. But the clip ended abruptly. Furious, he barked, "Who filmed this garbage? They ruined valuable teaching material." Hua quickly explained, "The patient's family recorded it on their phone. But if you want more footage, don't worry. The protagonist works right here in our hospital." Then, turning sharply, he added, "Unfortunately, some people use their senior titles to suppress young talent." With that, he projected Qi Zhenhai's scathing comment onto the screen. Qi sneered, "Did I say anything wrong? Performing manual hemostasis without surgical visibility is gambling with a patient's life." Hua didn't rush to argue. Instead, he said calmly, "Then perhaps you should see the paper he wrote on the subject," and motioned for Ling Ran to hand over his research outline, Manual Hemostasis, Application and Risk Analysis. After finishing the paper, Qi Zhenhai broke into a cold sweat. He quickly tried to shift the topic. "I never said manual hemostasis was wrong. But letting an intern perform it? Best case, it's malpractice. Worst case, it's manslaughter." The argument escalated fast. The 2 men nearly came to blows. Director Liu hurried to intervene. "Enough. Let's hear what the author himself has to say." Qi smirked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Perfect. Let's see what the rookie has to offer." Without waiting, he fired 2 questions. First, how confident were you when you decided to do manual hemostasis? Second, did you ever consider the consequences if it failed? Ling Ran answered without hesitation. If it failed, the patient would have died. He didn't realize. He just stepped right into Qi's trap. Qi immediately followed up. "Then tell me, knowing the risk, would you still have done it?" Ling Ran's reply was short and firm. "Yes." Qi burst out laughing. "Do you even hear yourself? You just admitted to medical negligence." But Ling Ran stayed calm. Negligence? There was no incident. The patient lived. The retort hit like a slap. Qi was speechless. In all his years, no intern had ever dared talk back to him. After a long pause, Qi's expression hardened again. "Young man, you're talented, no doubt. But have you thought about this? If things had gone wrong, your career would be over. Maybe even your mentors. Tell me, was someone forcing you to do it?" Director Liu's heart sank. It was a trap either way. If Ling Ran said he acted on courage, he'd be branded reckless. If he said someone forced him, he'd drag Director Hua down with him. To everyone's surprise, Ling Ran didn't pick either side. Instead, he spoke from the patient's perspective. At that moment, manual hemostasis offered the highest possible benefit to the patient. Director Liu smiled with approval. Procedures matter, but medicine always begins and ends with the patient. Qi Zhenhai, furious, snapped. "Ignoring protocol like that. You won't last long as a doctor. One mistake, one single mistake, and your career is over." Ling Ran calmly interrupted. "You're wrong. To me, doctors are like the body's cells. They exist to protect the system and resist infection. But if a cell only focuses on surviving forever and forgets its function, then it becomes cancer." The words hit like a thunderclap. Cold sweat poured down Qi's forehead. He instantly realized the implication. Ling Ran had just called him the cancer of the medical field, and he had no way to refute it. With a furious grunt, Qi slammed the door and stormed out. Dr. Zhou hurriedly grabbed Ling Ran's arm, dragging him away before he could say anything else dangerous. Ling Ran looked completely puzzled. "Did I say something wrong?" Zhou whispered. "In this field, discussions about medical policy are way above our pay grade. Also, by the way, you're on duty tonight." But instead of groaning, Ling Ran's eyes brightened. His first night shift, finally, a nurse approached him. "Dr. Ling, any specific cases you'd like to handle tonight?" Ling Ran answered evenly. "Hand, tendon injuries." If any come in, I'd like to try the new Tang suture technique. Anything else? The nurse asked. Ling Ran's eyes lit up with mischief. If there's a testicular rupture, call me immediately. With that, he smiled faintly and headed into the break room to catch some sleep before his first night on duty. Somehow, he slept straight through the night. Not a single one of the two special patient cases appeared. When his shift ended, Ling Ran went straight home. His father greeted him the same way as always, urging him to quit the hospital and work at their family clinic. As usual, Ling Ran refused without hesitation. Just then his phone rang. It was Lu Jinling calling. Her voice was urgent, asking if he was still at the hospital because an entire truck of patients needed his help. Before Ling Ran could even answer, his father's eyes lit up with greed. Why send them elsewhere? Keep the business in the family. He snatched the phone. Jean Ling, no matter how many patients you've got, send them all to our clinic. Delighted, Lu Jinling replied, Got it, uncle. I'll be there in no time. Hanging up, she immediately rounded up several vans full of patients and rushed toward the Ling family clinic. Meanwhile, Ling Ran was at home, lazily playing Honor of Kings. Lu Jinling, growing impatient, ordered her men sharply, Stop wasting time. Moments later, patients began streaming into the clinic one after another. Seeing the chaotic scene, Lu Jinling's temples twitched in anger. Her men sensed her killing intent and turned pale. The tension in the room was unbearable. At that moment, Ling Ran suddenly stood up. Help me play this game for a bit, he said to Lu Jinling. A doctor shouldn't keep patients waiting. Lu Jinling blushed, wanting to say she didn't even know how to play. But his phone was already in her hands. Ling Ran smiled lightly. Just play freely. Winning doesn't matter to me. Those words instantly ignited her fighting spirit. This was his game. How could she lose? Her cheeks flushed even redder as she realized she was holding Ling Ran's phone. A mischievous and slightly wicked thought began to bloom in her mind. Putting on his surgical gloves, Ling Ran instructed Dr. Xiong to handle the patients with bruises first. The ones requiring stitches, however, he'd take care of himself. One of the patients had heard that Ling Ran once stitched antler tattoos for Lu Jinling's brother. Wanting to look more fearsome, the man asked Ling Ran to create a scar 4 fingers wide and a palm long. It wasn't difficult for Ling Ran, though most people would have begged to minimize scarring. Once the stitching was done, the man was so thrilled he nearly grabbed a machete and ran off to conquer Shanghai. The system chimed. Achievement unlocked. Patient gratitude. Reward: 1 basic chest. The next patient was a woman with a torn shoulder. She requested Ling Ran to use the finest and most expensive suture thread, warning that her friend once went cheap and ended up with a terrible scar. She added that her clothing style often left her shoulders exposed, so the result had to be flawless. Dr. Xiong brought over a pack of fine sutures, saying it was already the thinnest they had. But that was really just an excuse to dodge responsibility. The hospital's number 0 suture thread was so thin he couldn't control it properly. The woman took the pack and immediately recognized it as a regular, cheap one. Her eyes gleamed with longing. I want the finer kind. Dr. Xiong and Nurse Wan froze in place. Ling Ran simply nodded. No problem. I'll do it exactly as you wish. He then asked Nurse Wan to bring a 5 to 0 long thread, while Dr. Xiong warned him not to push his luck. Ling Ran replied confidently, Thread size doesn't matter, only skill does. Moments later, the stitching was done flawlessly. The woman admired herself in the mirror, smiling. If any of my friends get hurt, I'm bringing them here. Hearing that, Ling Ran's father started daydreaming. In his mind, reporters were already lining up to interview them, and the Shago clinic was making headline news. The next morning, Ling Ran returned to the hospital. A nurse ran toward him, breathless. There's been a highway crash. The rescue helicopter is on the way. Dr. Zhao wants you prepped for surgery. In the ER, Dr. Zhao looked over the few remaining residents on duty. Ling Ran, still just an intern, felt a pang of worry. He knew his technique was solid, but trouble always seemed to follow him. And now the responsibility had fallen squarely on his shoulders. He had no choice but to press on and treat the patient. Dr. Zhao then called Ling Ran over to assist him as first assistant. The resident doctors stared in disbelief, wondering if Dr. Zhao's eyesight had gone bad. They simply hadn't seen what Ling Ran was truly capable of yet. Moments later, the critical patient was rushed into the emergency room. His spine, abdomen, and limbs were all bleeding heavily, though he was still conscious. The medical team quickly divided tasks, starting debridement on multiple wounds. But during the process, Dr. Zhao accidentally cut through a tourniquet. Due to internal and external pressure differences, blood suddenly burst out like a fountain. Dr. Zhao shouted, "Ling Ran, press down with gauze." But before the words finished, Ling Ran's left hand shot forward, pressing precisely on the temporary bleeding point. Dr. Zhao froze, remembering this kid had mastered the manual hemostasis technique. Though he'd never liked the boy much, their teamwork was unexpectedly seamless. Dr. Zhao had to admit, Ling Ran's skill was far beyond ordinary interns, so he entrusted the entire arm suturing to him. Watching Ling Ran work smoothly with the nurse, Dr. Zhao finally let out a quiet breath of relief. But in the very next second, Dr. Zhao's expression changed to panic. Ling Ran had asked the nurse to put on a pair of microsurgical goggles. He was preparing for tendon suturing on the patient's torn hand. Dr. Zhao snapped, "Who the hell told you to do that? Tendon sutures are for the hand surgery team." Ling Ran ignored him completely and continued working on the tendon repair. Veins bulged on Dr. Zhao's forehead. He was terrified that a single mistake could turn into a malpractice disaster, maybe even cost the patient their hand. Forcing himself to stay calm, he ordered Ling Ran to stop immediately. But Ling Ran replied evenly, "I'm using the Tang suture technique. If I stop now, the tendon damage will become irreversible." Hearing the name Tang suture, Dr. Zhao exploded again. "Who authorized you to use that?" Ling Ran's tone remained composed. "The patient has a zone 2 flexor tendon rupture. That's exactly where Tang's method works best. Why shouldn't I use it?" He had tested the skill before. Even at specialized level, it had a 70 to 80% success rate. Now at master level, it was nearly flawless. Dr. Zhao was left speechless. At this point, as the lead surgeon, he had completely lost control of the operation. Just then, Director Hua arrived, sensing something was wrong. Dr. Zhao immediately accused Ling Ran of performing an unauthorized, out-of-scope procedure. The residents exchanged worried glances. Ling Ran had really gotten himself into trouble this time. Director Hua asked sternly why he had done it. Ling Ran replied that he hadn't realized it was against protocol before beginning the tendon repair. Director Hua reminded him that in the operating room, the lead surgeon has absolute authority. Any action requires prior approval. Director Hua's tone was calm. "So, next time you enter do you know what to do?" Ling Ran stood tall, answering firmly, "Of course, I'll take the lead as the surgeon in charge." The entire room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward him in disbelief. Dr. Zhao felt his authority being openly challenged. He immediately ordered his assistant to call for Director Jinsi. But their exchange didn't escape Director Hua's ears. Director Jinsi? I doubt he even knows the Kasich suture technique. After all, the only one in the whole hospital who does is Director Pan, and he's still out on a business trip. With no better option, Director Hua decided to step in himself, focusing first on observing Ling Ran's performance. Though not a hand surgery specialist, he was no stranger to tendon sutures. To his surprise, the sutures were firm and flawless. He promptly instructed Ling Ran to finish the procedure. Dr. Zhao snapped, "Director Hua, are you crazy? Tendon sutures aren't even under our department." Hua shot back, "Then why don't you do it?" Cornered, Dr. Zhao backed down. At this point, the patient's safety mattered most. Although Ling Ran's initiative had caused discomfort, his vascular anastomosis was textbook perfect, with sutures neatly avoiding nerves and arteries. His skill was undeniable. And since Ling Ran was the only one in the ER skilled in the Tang suture technique, Director Hua had no intention of letting him go. He dismissed the other departments and called for an impromptu internal meeting. The first person he addressed was Ling Ran. "You've done this before. acting on your own and ignoring protocol. At any other hospital, you probably wouldn't even get your diploma. Considering you're still an intern, I'll issue a light punishment. Ling Ran didn't argue. He simply accepted the criticism. Director Hoa continued, I'll report to the medical education department to extend your internship, and from now on, any tendon injury cases must use the Tang suture technique. It sounded less like punishment and more like an opportunity. He then added seriously, if this surgery turns out well, our ER could officially take on hand surgery cases. Dr. Zhao suddenly understood. He'd been so obsessed with being the lead surgeon that he'd overlooked the importance of the Tang suture itself. Across Manhwa, it was considered an advanced procedure. If the ER could handle 10 tendon repairs a month, it'd set a national record. And if that happened, the money would practically fall into their laps. Dr. Zhao's attitude flipped instantly. Kid, my bright future depends on you now. Soon, the tendon suturing was fully completed. After confirming everything looked perfect, Director Hun nodded in approval. He immediately called for Deputy Director Wang to come for a follow-up consultation. If they could pass this review, the next steps would be officially justified. Moments later, he brought Director Wang into the observation room. The patient before them was the same one who had just undergone the tendon repair. Director Hui gestured for Ling Ran to explain his technique. Ling Ran bent slightly and began. For the first loop, I placed the entry at 8 millimeters on the proximal dorsolateral side, then ran the needle longitudinally through the tendon, exiting 6 millimeters distal. The stream of precise medical terminology left Director Wang stunned. It seemed Director Hua had found himself a truly reliable right-hand man. He decided to conduct a quick hand function assessment. As the patient followed instructions, flexing and extending his fingers one by one, the results indicated that once recovery was complete, he'd regained full independence in daily life. The patient's family finally let out a sigh of relief. At first, they'd assumed the young doctor had made a mistake. That's why the higher-ups were called in. Although Director Wang acknowledged Ling Ran's skill, he himself was a hand surgery specialist. There was no way he'd let Director Hua steal all the credit. He distributed the functional assessment sheets to the doctors present. The scores reflected an impressive post-op average. Then Director Wang asked, in the Tang suture, does it require any trimming of the tendon? Ling Ran immediately answered, yes, controlled trimming stimulates tendon regeneration and speeds recovery. His explanation earned nods of approval from the others, and the system chimed. Achievement unlocked. One basic chest. Ling Ran then asked the system seriously, who's the strongest Tang suture specialist in Yanhua? Two glowing words appeared before his eyes. It's you. Having completed his first Tang suture operation, Ling Ran returned home utterly exhausted. Coincidentally, a young monk from the outskirts of Yanhua came to visit that day. Ling Ran's mother smiled kindly, patting his head. Xiao Dongsheng, stay and have dinner with us today. She had even prepared a full vegetarian meal for him. With a gentle curiosity, she asked, so, what gift did you bring this time? Dongsheng pulled out a small box of incense sticks. The abbot saw Ling Ran on TV performing as the lead surgeon, so he asked me to deliver this as a congratulatory gift. He said that when he read Ling Ran's face as a child, he already foresaw this day would come. Ling Ran's father beamed with pride, praising the abbot's wisdom and vowing to visit the temple soon. Then both parents turned to Ling Ran, eyes full of hope. Son, when will you officially become the lead surgeon? Ling Ran sighed helplessly. I told you, I'm still just an intern. I can't even qualify as first assistant yet. Scene shift. 2 months later, Ling Ran's hair was longer, but his calm, handsome look remained. Nurse Wang Jia stopped him in the hallway. From today on, I'll be your assigned partner for Tang suture operations. If you need special equipment or additional staff, please let me know in advance. Ling Ran replied casually, nothing special for now. We'll adjust once patients come in. Wang Jia's tone grew serious. Requests must be submitted early. The hospital's approval process is strict. Ling Ran frowned slightly. Wait, did Director Hua already find a patient? Every few days we get new tendon injury cases, she explained. If we're lucky, maybe even 2 a day. And who'll be assisting this time? Ling Ran asked. Wang Jia answered decisively, Director Hua himself. But since Ling Ran isn't officially qualified as a lead surgeon yet, the record will still list Dr. Hua as the attending. Of course, Dr. Hua was far too busy to actually play assistant. While Ling Ran was pondering this, Dr. Hua appeared behind him. This is trainee resident Lu Wenbin. From now on, he'll be your second assistant. Wenbin froze at the sight of Ling Ran. Director Hua, you can't be serious. Me assisting an intern? I'm the lead, Ling Ran's first assistant, and your second. Dr. Hua replied calmly. Wenbin thought for a moment. It kind of made sense. Before he could answer, Dr. Hua shoved him toward Ling Ran. He looked a little slow-witted, but that was fine. All he had to do was hold retractors. Half a day later, Wang Jia and Wenbin were summoned to the practice lab. As soon as they opened the door, they froze. Holy crap! Where did all these pig trotters come from? Ling Ran replied coolly. Until we have patience, we'll use pig trotters as tendon training material. He then picked up a scalpel and made a clean horizontal cut through the extensor tendon at the joint. With steady hands, he demonstrated the Zone 2 Tang suture technique. That's when Wenbin finally understood Director Hua's plan. This, in turn, was a prodigy. If he could master Ling Ran's suturing method, the ER's future would shine bright, even rivaling the hand surgery department. Fired up, Wenbin shouted, "Let's do this! I'm going to master the Tang suture." Just then, Wang Jia received an urgent phone call. Dr. Hua would be returning in 4 hours with a patient. To improve coordination in the OR, Ling Ran decided to run a few more practice demos for the two of them. Lu Wenbin gradually picked up the motions, thinking he had mastered the Tang suture technique, but he couldn't have been more wrong. 4 hours later, Dr. Hua arrived with a newly formed team, ready for surgery. The case was a classic Zone 2 tendon rupture, and Ling Ran confidently stated the success rate was quite high. Dr. Hua sighed softly. Confidence was good, but talking about success rates in front of family was taboo. He reminded Ling Ran that discussing probability could cause false expectations, something a good doctor should never do. Ling Ran was surprised. The person most nervous here wasn't him, but Dr. Hua himself. And then, out of nowhere, Dr. Hua handed him the lead scalpel. The incision's too shallow, Hua instructed. You'll need to make another cut. Ling Ran took a deep breath. With a steady motion, he began slicing along the thumb's skin. Yet, what should have been a simple cut took him nearly 5 minutes. The anesthesiologist began to doubt his skills. Suddenly, the system flashed a new mission. Suture the patient's tendon. Reward, bow grip precision incision. It was exactly the skill Ling Ran had been hoping for. But his next move made Dr. Hua frown once again. His first incision had missed the ideal angle, forcing a second attempt. And with the tendon rupture over 20 hours old, the odds of success were falling fast. Knowing that, Ling Ran widened the incision to improve the margin for error. In his mind, he simulated the best possible sequence of movements. Then, his seamless transitions left every doctor in the room stunned. Most assumed his earlier mistake had just been a show to ease the tension. Compared to the training room demonstrations, this surgery was on a completely different level. This was the real Ling Ran, the one Dr. Hua had recognized and trusted enough to bring a patient all the way from another province. Ling Ran glanced at Lu Wenbin in mild confusion. Honestly, this isn't that different from stitching up a pig's tendon, right? With a final snip of the scissors, the operation came to a flawless close. The waiting family outside finally exhaled in relief. Watching his newly formed team perform so well, Dr. Hua couldn't hide his satisfaction. Wenbin, meanwhile, had learned a lot from working under Ling Ran. He thought Ling Ran would continue showing off more surgical brilliance, maybe even another round of insane techniques. But Ling Ran's next words froze him in place. Now, could you teach me how to write a medical report? Wenbin blinked, then realized, yeah, that actually made sense. The guy was still just a fresh intern. So what exactly have you been doing in this hospital, he asked. Ling Ran started counting on his fingers. Wound suturing, manual hemostasis, Tang tendon repair. Wenbin's jaw dropped. That was basically the full checklist of a trained surgeon. Then it hit him. Wait, this guy's an intern. Still, those cases all needed proper reports. Ling Ran casually replied, "Oh, the other interns usually write them for me." Winbin stood there stunned. An intern with his own interns? Unbelievable. Later, Director Wang completed the final observation room check. He told the patient's family with a relieved smile, he'll be ready for discharge soon. At that moment, the system chimed in, mission complete. Reward, basic chest treasure. Keep a close eye on today's patient, Dr. Hoare reminded him. If recovery goes well, we'll schedule another surgery in 2 days. Also, Ling Ran, you're coming with me tonight. Director Zhou wants to discuss something important with you. Meanwhile, Xie Yihe, a representative from a major pharmaceutical company, was also attending the dinner. She brought along a handsome young man as her company's image rep, hoping to make connections with Yunhua Hospital's leadership. But the moment she saw Ling Ran, her heart skipped a beat. Wild fantasies of marriage and kids flashed across her mind before she could stop them. She glanced at her own poster boy and instantly felt he was outclassed by miles. With a dazzling smile, she approached. "Dr. Ling, would you be interested in representing our company's medical brand?" But before Ling Ran could reply, she quickly snapped back to her senses. Business first, flirting later. She hurriedly greeted Director Hua and Dean Zhou. The dean, noticing her good taste, smiled approvingly. "This is Dr. Ling from our emergency department, the lead surgeon for the Tang suture technique." Seeing her chance, Xie Yihe took Ling Ran's hand warmly. "Don't just stand there, doctor. Come sit and chat with us." The handsome rep straightened his back, thinking, finally, my moment to shine. His weapon, the classic bright and sunny smile. But his boss's order was simple, stick close to Dr. Ling. He blinked in confusion. Wait, is she into him? Or into me? Either way, a job's a job, time to play along. Just as he was about to introduce the dishes, Ling Ran's attention was fixed entirely on the waitress behind him, as if the young man didn't exist. After several rounds of drinks and countless dishes, the dinner finally shifted to business. Xie Yihe smiled and introduced her company's flagship product. "This is our latest MRI model. With it, the success rate of tendon repairs can be greatly improved." Director Zhou chuckled. "If we buy an MRI just for the Tang suture, Dr. Ling might become a celebrity overnight." Dr. Hua's eyes lit up. "We've wanted one for ages. With this, emergency cases won't be delayed anymore." Zhou gave him a teasing glance. "Come on, this is a banquet, not a charity. MRI, I'll buy you a PET scanner while I'm at it." His tone was clearly playful. A full MRI for one technique would be excessive, but a precision surgical microscope was definitely within reason. Dr. Hua spoke up confidently. "There's no comparing Ling Ran and Director Pan. Even if both operate independently, Ling's Tang method is a family-level mastery. Few surgeons can even learn it. Director Pan took 3 or 4 years, and now he's studying abroad in Japan. By that logic, Ling's value easily equals that of a full MRI machine." Xie Yihe jumped in with perfect timing. Hiring a Tang method lead surgeon now costs tens of thousands per case. After their combined persuasion, Director Zhou finally nodded in agreement. Dr. Hua grinned proudly. "Doesn't matter how strong others are. We'll make our ER the best in the world by this time next year." Director Zhou stood up, raising his glass. "To everyone's success." Suddenly, the young man picked up a bottle and chugged it in one go. Zhou blinked, half amused, half concerned. "This guy's nuts. Someone book him an MRI." Cut to Ling Ran, back at the hospital, practicing tendon sutures on pig trotters again. Suddenly, Lu Wenbin burst in, his face full of excitement. His next words jolted Ling Ran wide awake. "We found the patient with a ruptured spermatic cord." Ling Ran's eyes lit up. "Perfect. I'll go right now." The patient's right spermatic cord was torn. The testicle was exposed, with dust and small stones lodged in the tissue. No additional trauma detected, but the irregular wound carried a clear risk of infection and tetanus. Ling Ran frowned. "Was this a road accident?" The resident quickly explained. "No, he was skateboarding in a park. He jumped onto a staircase handrail, but the board didn't follow. He basically rode the rail, and it was one of those sharp metal ones." Ling Ran calmly ordered, prepare the tetanus antitoxin. Bleeding's under control for now. He paused, visualizing the possible internal damage. If he cut too deep, he needed to distinguish between normal and damaged cords. One mistake could be catastrophic. But the anatomy here was delicate, and he couldn't decide without full certainty. The resident frowned. If the cord's abnormal, torsion is the main concern. The patient looked utterly lost. The medical jargon sounded like gibberish to him. Ling Ran explained gently. The spermatic cord holds the testicles and provides blood and nutrients. If it's twisted, we'll need surgery to fix it. In worst cases, removal might be necessary. No sutures required. The man trembled, fear spreading across his face. After a thorough check, there was no torsion. No removal needed, just cleaning and suturing. Suddenly, the patient grabbed Ling Ran's sleeve, his voice trembling. "Doctor, please save me. My whole future depends on you." Ling Ran placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Relax. I'll do everything I can." He put on his gloves, then picked up the scalpel. Under the bright surgical light, the blade traced a precise line along the torn skin. The technique he used was the interrupted vertical mattress suture, a skill he had unlocked but never actually used. The resident's eyes widened. "You gotta be kidding me. An intern can do that?" With a final snip of the needle thread, the procedure came to an end. The patient's dignity and his manhood were both saved. 2 days later, the resident reported excitedly that the ruptured cord patient had recovered and left after just 1 day. "Dr. Ling," he asked curiously, "where did you learn that mattress suture?" Ling Ran replied casually, "At my family clinic. We don't get many scrotal injuries, so we practiced on old men's abdominal incisions." The resident froze. "Wait, your clinic does open surgery?" Just then, Lu Wenbin approached Ling Ran, saying it was time for patient rounds. In truth, he only wanted to get rid of the other resident. He hadn't had a proper chance to learn from Ling Ran lately and planned to use today's session for extra practice. Ling Ran, however, declined right away. "Not necessary. I've got surgery tomorrow. I need rest." Lu misread it, thinking Ling Ran had given up on practicing incisions. Perfect, he thought. If I'm master at first, Ling Ran will have to come ask me for advice. The idea made him smirk. Maybe he'd get ahead this time. Soon, the next day's operation began. Director Hui gave a detailed rundown of the patient's condition. Then Ling Ran took the lead and the spotlight. Both the superficial and deep tendons were torn, making adhesion highly likely. But for Ling Ran, that was no issue. The Tang suture technique could handle it easily. He picked up the surgical pen, steady and focused. Without a moment's hesitation, he marked the incision line precisely. The scalpel cut clean, the skin split open smoothly. Director Hui had planned to let Lu perform the incision, but it was clear now his earlier doubts were unnecessary. He'd also heard that Ling Ran had been buying pig trotters out of his own pocket to practice. Realizing that interns didn't earn much, he came up with an idea. He'd cover all the practice materials from now on. After cutting the final suture thread, the 2.5-hour surgery finally came to an end. Director Hui was in disbelief. That entire operation had taken so little time, and the main surgeon was a fresh intern. His talent was downright terrifying. Later that evening, after Ling Ran finished his shower, Dr. Zhou came to see him. Zhou smiled and said, "I'm here to split the payment. Technically, it all should go to Director Hui, but since he said otherwise, it's yours." He went on to explain the tertiary hospital's payment rates. After all the deductions, Ling Ran would receive 518 yuan. That was already equivalent to what a senior attending would earn. Ling Ran did some quick math. If he could do 3 surgeries a day, that'd be 15,000 a month. Just then, the familiar system prompt appeared. New mission: complete 10 Tang suture surgeries within 1 month. Reward: 1 basic treasure chest. Ling Ran's fighting spirit reignited instantly. He went straight to Director Hui, asking for more surgical cases. When he heard there were 7 available, Ling Ran said eagerly, "Let's do them all. I can handle 5 in 1 day." Hui broke into a cold sweat. The kid wasn't joking. Every surgery so far had been flawless, but 5 in a single day? That was pushing it. Ling Ran simply replied, calm and firm, I don't need rest. Hua frowned, wondering if the intern was short on money lately. When he asked, Ling Ran shook his head. It's not about money. I just want to sharpen my skills and get better. Ling Ran's explanation made sense, but Director Hua still felt 5 surgeries a day was pushing it. He finally set the limit, 2 per day. Soon, the first operation began as scheduled. Since Hua was busy with a meeting, Ling Ran decisively took over as lead surgeon. By the time Hua arrived, the surgery had just finished flawlessly. He couldn't believe it. The previous one took 2.5 hours. This one wrapped up in just 2. With doubt still in his mind, he leaned down to check the patient's sutures. The stitches were perfectly aligned, smooth and tight. Hua had no choice but to admit it. Ling Ran's skill had already surpassed his own. He forced a smile. The next patient's waiting next door. Go ahead. Lu Wenbin threw an arm around Ling Ran. Director, you've had a long day. Let us handle this one. The second operation kicked off. This one has to be faster and cleaner than the last, Ling Ran thought. Only then will Director Hua trust me with more tendon cases. When he removed the microscope glasses, it signaled the end of another perfect surgery. Hua was stunned. Not even 2 hours this time. Just how deep does this kid's talent go? As they stepped out, Hua said, if traffic's clear, the next patient should arrive any minute. Before he could even finish, Ling Ran, who'd been planning to rest, already looked fully recharged. The third surgery began soon after. Lu Wenbin was drenched in sweat, barely holding up. Ling Ran, on the other hand, looked fresh, unfazed. He hadn't even taken a bathroom break. He glanced at Lu, who looked like he might collapse any second. Wang Jia, Ling said calmly, get him a towel. Sure enough, for anyone without a system, 3 back-to-back surgeries were pure torture. By the end, both Wang Jia and Lu were completely wiped out. Ling Ran, however, still had energy to spare and went to ask Director Hua for more patients, who could only sigh. That's all for today. No more cases left. Ling held up 5 fingers. Then line up 5 for tomorrow. Both assistants shuddered on the spot. Just then, Dr. Ma and Nurse Zheng walked in. Each of them came bearing small gifts for Ling Ran. Ling Ran knew they wouldn't show up with gifts for no reason, so he asked calmly, all right, what do you 2 want? Dr. Ma stepped forward eagerly. I want to be your assistant. After watching your Tang Suture video, I'm in awe. Let me take over for Lu Wenbin. He's about to collapse anyway. Lu Wenbin's face darkened instantly. He jumped up and shouted, even if I die, I'll die on the operating table. No one's taken my spot before that. Director will cut them both off sternly. Enough. Tomorrow, we got 5 full surgeries. The next morning, the team gathered early and ready. The first patient had 3 severed fingers, far more complicated than a single-digit repair. This time, though, Lu came prepared. He'd actually worn adult diapers, so no bathroom breaks. As Ling Ran's scalpel descended, everyone snapped into full focus. They had 5 surgeries to ace. Under smooth coordination, the first 3 were done in under 3 hours. After the third operation, Wang Jia's energy began to falter. She'd been on her feet for 6 surgeries straight since yesterday, completely drained. Ling Ran knew nurses bore heavy workloads too, especially scrub nurses, so he told her to rest and had Nurse Zhang take over. Before leaving, Wang Jia warned him, she's not familiar with Tang sutures. Slow your pace a little. Meanwhile, Lu slumped against the wall and dozed off. With 2 more surgeries left, he figured he'd better save some energy. Ling Ran nudged him awake gently. Go get proper rest. Come back when you're ready. Lu protested. I'm fine. Wide awake. But the dark circles under his eyes said otherwise. Ling Ran sighed. You're in no shape to assist. Set an alarm. Rest before the next case. Lu grabbed his phone, setting the alarm carefully. Don't start without me, okay? When the alarm finally rang, Lu's eyes snapped open, full of determination. But as soon as he opened the door, the sight before him made him freeze. Ling Ran looked up. You've been out for ages. We're already finishing the 5th surgery. Dr. Ma, who had taken his spot, was grinning from ear to ear. Lu's expression twisted. He'd been played. That bastard had changed his alarm time. Flames of determination burned in Lu Wenbin's eyes. Even if it was just cleanup work, he refused to miss a single lesson from his boss Ling. Just then, Wang Jiao walked by. She couldn't believe they were still operating after her entire break. She couldn't help blurting, "Dr. Ling really is a machine of endurance." The nurses nearby burst into teasing laughter at her choice of words. Realizing how that sounded, Wang Jia's cheeks turned bright red. She covered her face and ran away in embarrassment. The fifth and final surgery of the day wrapped up smoothly. Ling Ran completed his system mission and received a basic treasure chest. Expecting the usual stamina potion, he opened it casually. To his surprise, this time it contained a new specialized skill: physical examination. It was the fundamental diagnostic process: observing, palpating, percussing, and listening to assess a patient's condition. Proper analysis could even reveal early disease patterns and public health trends. Later, Ling Ran got into a cab for the ride home. His system showed his physical examination rank at #128, requiring hands-on practice to improve. So, to gain experience, he decided to practice on himself. As he touched his nose, the system displayed a health report instantly. Then came the throat, chest, arms, and abdomen. Watching through the mirror, the driver grew increasingly nervous. Ling Ran said calmly, "Drive a bit further ahead." The driver stammered, "The tank's almost empty. You should get off here." The door slammed shut. In the next second, the car screeched away at 180 kilometers per hour. Ling Ran stood frozen on the roadside, completely speechless. The next morning, the on-duty doctor called to say all surgeries were postponed due to full occupancy. With the day off, Ling Ran decided to help out at his family clinic. His father immediately complained, "You should have told me earlier. I already hired Dr. Miao part-time. Cost me 200 yuan a day." As Ling Ran put on his white coat, his sharp, handsome face instantly drew the attention of a crowd of admirers. It was the perfect time for Ling Ran to test his new skill. After completing 18 physical exams, his ranking in Manhwa City rose by 1 spot. Just then, 2 young women came in for checkups. Dr. Miao noticed and tried to steal a few clients. But when the women saw it wasn't Ling Ran, they made up an excuse and dashed away. The next morning, Ling Ran returned to the hospital, eagerly gathering new patients. Dr. Ma even helped by pulling a few cases from other hospitals. He then handed Ling Ran the latest issue of Emergency Medicine for Critical Patients. Right there on the page, Ling Ran's own published paper. The system chimed, "Mission complete. Reward, intermediate treasure chest." Inside, he found a rare item, a 3,000 anatomical experience manual. Its value rivaled that of the perfect level hand hemostasis skill. With 6 advanced abilities under his belt, Ling Ran had now reached a level few doctors could dream of. Now, even glancing at his own hand, he could mentally map every muscle and tendon within seconds. Just then, Wang Jia stepped through the door. Seeing him staring at his hand, she joked, "What, reading your own palm now? Maybe read mine too." Ling Ran smiled. A perfect chance to test his new ability on someone else. As he gently took her hand, a blush spread across Wang Jia's face. But a moment later, Ling Ran sighed. Compared to those 3,000 cases, your hand is ordinary. Wang Jia thought she'd been diagnosed with something terrible, but Ling Ran said calmly, "Relax, your tiny hands are still a few steps away from shorthand syndrome." Her expression froze, and she nearly strangled him on the spot. Thankfully, Lu Wenbin rushed in before a crime could happen. He came to call Ling Ran for the first surgery. The patient had a torn finger and needed extensive reconstruction before suturing. As Ling Ran's scalpel made the first cut, a dozen possible flap incision plans instantly flashed through his mind. That's when he realized the 3,000 Anatomy Experience book could assist him in real time. Just then, Director Hua entered with Director Bai from the Health Institute, here to observe the Tang suture technique. Bai had come expecting a joke, curious what kind of trick Hua was playing. But within just 30 minutes, Ling Ran finished the complex single-finger reconstruction flawlessly. Shock and disbelief flickered in Bai's eyes. Hua smiled. "You're our guest today. Stay for a few more surgeries and see what our ER team can really do. The group moved to the next operating room. Watching Ling Ran's speed and precision, Director Bai blurted out, "Incredible," while the others could barely keep up. What he thought was bragging now looked painfully real. Before they could recover, Ling Ran wrapped up another surgery in just 20 minutes. Even seasoned surgeons needed at least 90 minutes for this kind of Tang suture. I couldn't believe it. "This has to be staged," he shouted. Was shot back. "If this is an act, I'll eat the whole operating table." Still unconvinced, I demanded to see more cases. Hua ordered Ling Ran to head straight to, or number 3 for the next round. After several surgeries in a row, the observers were completely stunned. Finally, Director Bai conceded. "All right, he's the real deal." He turned to Hua. "Bring him to tomorrow's International Emergency Medicine Forum in Yanhua. A talent like this shouldn't be locked in or forever." Hua's eyes gleamed. "Then let's take him to the world stage." As the operation ended, the system granted Ling Ran another reward. Nursian entered and smiled. "Director Hua said you should rest tonight. Meet him at the Wyndham Hotel before noon tomorrow." Word spread that this would be one of the biggest medical forums in the country, with top doctors and specialists attending. By noon the next day, the Wyndham Hotel was packed to the brim. An older lady in the crowd gasped, "Wow, this year's forum must be huge." They even invited a young celebrity. The waiter quickly explained, "He's not an actor. He's a rising star in emergency medicine. They say he's completed dozens of Tang sutures in under a month of internship, and he's Director Hua's top disciple." The Annie immediately pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of Ling Ran's poster, then sent a voice message to her daughter. "This one's a keeper. Smart, handsome, and a doctor." Meanwhile, Xia Yihe, the organizer of the event, arrived at the scene looking anxious. On the phone, her assistant reported bad news. Attendance was low, barely 200 people, despite the heavy investment. More people meant more visibility and more funding. Just as Xia was about to panic, a staff member rushed overexcitedly. "The brochures are gone." The female doctors grabbed them all. "They're asking about that new doctor from Yanhua." Xia froze. She never imagined Ling Ran's face alone could outperform the entire marketing department. Suddenly, Director Ba from the provincial hospital called. "Brilliant idea." Ba laughed. "You've turned a medical forum into a matchmaking event." She added, "I'm bringing every single female doctor from our hospital." Xia stared at her phone, dumbfounded. Matchmaking was happening right now. At that moment, Ling Ran arrived at the forum. Director Mao from the Children's Hospital spotted him, tall, refined, and strikingly handsome. Without hesitation, Mao stepped forward, eager to introduce his daughter to the young prodigy. Director Mao proudly declared, "My daughter graduated from Xiamen University. She's pretty, sweet, and well-educated. If you become my son-in-law, I'll make sure you get the ultimate premium package." The Annie nearby looked on with envy sparkling in her eyes. Director Mao had even planned out how many grandchildren she'd be holding in the future, just as she was quietly celebrating her future victory. Lu Jinling suddenly appeared, greeting Ling Ran with a confident smile. Mao's face darkened instantly. "That shameless woman again? Trying to steal my son-in-law," she snapped. "And you are? Which hospital CEO?" Lu smirked. "Golden Deer Health Services." "And you, Granny. You know Ling Ran too?" The word Granny hit like a bomb. Director Mao almost exploded on the spot. Yet she forced a smile. Didn't expect an ambulance company to show up at a medical forum. Lu rolled her eyes inwardly. This old hag is picking a fight. But she wasn't intimidated. People in the business world called her the old lady killer of the marketplace. No one dared bargain with her. And today, she had an ace up her sleeve. When Mao kept running her mouth, Lu calmly played her trump card. "We're the main sponsor of this forum. Still think I don't belong here." That shut Mao up instantly. Her fake smile froze like plaster. Lu had never feared anyone, especially not in front of Ling Ran. In her mind, she had to win. What she didn't know, Ling Ran had already slipped away to a quiet corner, enjoying some snacks. But trouble followed. This time, 2 more admirers showed up. The first, Miss B, launched her attack with a barrage of sweet compliments. Dressed in an Audi skirt and Gucci t-shirt, she looked confident and glamorous. But Miss merely twirled her hair, and Ling Rant's gaze locked onto her sparkling necklace. The stage was set for a battle to the death. Meanwhile, Lu Jinling, fresh from her verbal victory, turned around, only to realize Ling Ran had vanished. She searched the room frantically and found him surrounded again by another group of admiring girls. Her eyes narrowed. Leave him alone for 1 second, and he's already attracting butterflies. She walked up gracefully, carrying a plate of food, and, right in front of everyone, fed Ling Ran in the sweetest, most deliberate way possible. None of them realized who they were dealing with. In Ling Rant's feeding leaderboard, Jean Ling still held the undisputed #1 spot. Her move didn't scare the others away. Instead, it lit a competitive fire in every one of them. What they didn't know was that the mastermind behind this chaos sat right above them, in the room upstairs. Director Hua was there, preparing to pull some strings. A few well-placed votes could secure the emergency department's victory. But as soon as he stepped on stage to give his speech, Director Pan from hand surgery arrived, bringing along a Japanese professor, clearly looking for trouble. Pan began proudly introducing the guest. This is Professor Hashimoto, one of Japan's top hand surgery experts. Hashimoto smiled politely. I heard there's a young genius here who mastered the Tang suture. I'd love to see his skill for myself. Director Jean immediately sensed a setup. They're trying to challenge us in public. He asked cautiously, would you like to observe his surgery? Hashimoto shook his head. No, I'd rather examine the patients who've already undergone Tang sutures. The problem? The ER and hand surgery departments were separate. They had no access to each other's wards. Pan suggested, then just transfer a few patients over to our department for review. Jean frowned. You're clearly trying to stir up trouble. Pan scoffed. They stole our patients first. Don't blame me for taking them back. The room went tense. The two departments were seconds away from open conflict. Hashimoto didn't follow their argument word for word, but he could tell this was tarnishing Tang's suturing's reputation. In Japan, he said calmly, Tang sutures consume vast medical resources. We prefer precision over volume. If a case doesn't qualify, we amputate instead. One doctor immediately snapped. Our duty is to save lives. If there's even a chance, we take it. Hashimoto smirked, unimpressed. Idealism won't heal patients. Show me your post-op results. The group soon arrived at the hand surgery department's rehab room. Hashimoto glanced over the patients with casual confidence, then declared flatly, half of these people will never fully recover. The comment made one of the doctors instantly clench his fists. Director Jean quickly pulled him aside, whispering, calm down. Don't challenge a foreign expert head-on. After all, anyone who could diagnose by sight alone was not to be underestimated. Hashimoto smirked and decided to show off. Let me guess which ones came from the emergency department. There's only one truth. First, eliminate those two. Unfortunately, the two patients he eliminated just happened to be Ling Rant's cases. A moment later, reality smacked him right across the face. Desperate to save face, he demonstrated a Japanese technique called the 9-finger test, where patients control tiny objects. The finer the control, the better the recovery. But when the results came in, Hashimoto froze. Their dexterity wasn't just good, it was miraculous. Cut to Ling Ran and his team, arriving neatly dressed for the presentation. Director Jean and the others greeted them personally. Hashimoto, curious again, studied the group like a detective analyzing suspects. After some dramatic pondering, he confidently pointed to the least impressive one, Lu Wenbin. Director Jean sighed helplessly as the room once again erupted in laughter at Hashimoto's mistake. Hashimoto was speechless. He's handsome and skilled. He looks like a character straight out of a TV drama. Then he narrowed his eyes. No way. He's probably just a PR mascot. Manhwa can't really be that strong. Chuckling, he said he wanted to see Ling Rant's real technique with his own eyes. Medical skill, complicated yet simple, ultimately depends on one thing: time spent in the operating room. Director Pan leaned forward. Then let's schedule a surgery right now. Director Hua hesitated. If Ling Ran made a mistake in front of a foreign expert, The embarrassment would be unbearable. Thankfully, Dr. Zhou stepped in. Every one of Ling Ran's operations is recorded. We can just play the footage. Hashimoto agreed reluctantly. As the video rolled, Ling Ran's movements were crisp, clean, and unbelievably precise. After watching dozens of times, Hashimoto finally sighed. Enough. His technique is flawless. But Director Pan refused to accept it. No way someone can perform that perfectly every single time. He replayed the clip 70, maybe 80 times, only to reach one conclusion. Ling Ran's Tang sutures were faster, sharper, and more efficient than his own. He could predict most of Ling Ran's decisions, but the subtle adjustments, those tiny, instinctive micro-movements, were beyond comprehension. Each time Ling Ran faced a new problem, he developed a new solution, improving dramatically after just a few cases. Pan couldn't believe it. If he hadn't seen the footage himself, he'd swear such a surgeon couldn't exist in real life. In the end, he was forced to admit Ling Ran had surpassed him. He had planned to return home and block Ling Ran's rise, but it was too late. The young doctor's brilliance would inevitably reshape Yunhua Hospital's entire hierarchy. In the end, Director Pan decided to stay in China a little longer, delaying his return for further training. But Hashimoto mocked him. A panicked man always makes mistakes. If you try to compete with Ling Ran here, you'll end up humiliated. There's only one truth. The gap between you and Ling Ran is far too great. My advice, finish your 3-day visit, return to Japan, and sharpen your technique. Only when you've truly evolved will you stand chance. Over the next 3 days, Hashimoto and Pan performed a hip joint replacement at Changshi Orthopedic Hospital. Though Pan wasn't the lead surgeon, he took the chance to build connections. Networking mattered as much as skill in this field. Back in Manhwa, he gathered his team. Tomorrow, I leave for Japan. When I return, Ling Ran's reign will end. But the very next moment, he froze in disbelief. His staff reported that Ling Ran had completed 24 flexor tendon repairs in just 6 days, while Pan could barely manage 5 in 1. What terrified him now wasn't Ling Ran's skill, it was his growth speed. Pan rushed to change into scrubs and stormed toward the oar. He had to confirm it with his own eyes. Sure enough, Ling Ran's technique was sharper, smoother, and more natural than the footage ever showed. His surgical team had also reached near-perfect synchronization. Pan realized grimly that it wasn't just him. The entire hand surgery department would have to evolve or fall behind. Because as long as Ling Ran stood in the ER, any hesitation meant defeat. Meanwhile, the system issued a new mission. Perform 2 cases of manual hemostasis. Reward: 1 basic treasure chest. The challenge? Each case required stopping a hemorrhage of 1,500 cubic centimeters, more than a full bottle of soda. Ling Ran headed to the emergency ward, hoping for a chance to try. That's when Dr. Zhou found him. "I've got a few tough cases for you," Zhou said. First, a bone stuck in the rectum. Second, a nail lodged in the prostate. Those were no problem for Ling Ran. But the third, Zhou's tone darkened. Cardiac arrest. No pulse for 3 minutes. Even with the system's aid, Ling Ran couldn't bring the patient back. Cold sweat ran down his back. It was the first time he'd ever lost someone on the table. Dr. Zhou quickly stepped in to comfort him. Life and death are part of the job. Doctors guard the gate, but even the best of us can't save everyone. Ling Ran looked devastated. If I hadn't done the CPR myself, maybe he would have. No, Zhou cut him off firmly. After 3 minutes of cardiac arrest, the survival rate is 1 in 10,000. And even if revived, most end up vegetative. Your technique was flawless. If it were me, the outcome would have been the same. Some lives just can't be saved. He patted Ling Ran's shoulder. "Come on, let's grab a drink. You need to let this go." They stopped by Xiao's tavern, ordering a few simple dishes and 2 glasses of wine. The moment Ling Ran saw the owner, his instincts kicked in. Something was clearly wrong with the man's body. Zhou chuckled. He's been sick since birth. Basically has a lifetime membership at Yunhua Hospital. Born with congenital heart disease. Broke his ankle jumping in grade school. Lost a kidney in a street fight as an adult. And chronic rheumatism. He's practically a VIP at the hospital. Appendicitis, arteriosclerosis, stents, liver cysts, gallstones, you name it, he's had it. The model patient of Manhwa. Still, despite all that, his upbeat attitude might be what keeps him alive. Just as they lifted their glasses, a panic cry erupted outside. A man was waving a knife, threatening passersby. Police sirens blared as officers rushed to the scene. The criminal lunged without hesitation, stabbing an officer in the side. Blood sprayed everywhere, sending the crowd into chaos. Then, clutching the bloody knife, he fled the area. The wounded officer gasped, saying there was another injured young man up ahead. Zhou split up with Ling Ran to cover both scenes. To their surprise, Old Xiao ran over carrying a first aid kit. Given his medical history, carrying one around wasn't that strange. Ling Ran examined the patient and saw the wound had pierced deep into the abdomen. He immediately disinfected with iodine, trying to minimize infection, but the bleeding was too severe and pressure alone risked making it worse. Ling Ran began examining the patient. Based on his findings, it looked like a true splenic rupture. Every second counted. Without hesitation, he pushed his finger straight into the wound near the kidney. The onlookers were completely stunned. Once Ling Ran pinched the splenic ligament, the massive bleeding finally stopped. But before he could even take a breath, another person came running for help. Over on Dr. Zhou's side, the patient's abdominal bleeding couldn't be controlled. Just then, Old Xiao showed up pushing a wooden cart. It wasn't an ambulance, but it was enough to move the injured for now. They loaded the patient, and Ling ran onto the cart and rushed toward Dr. Zhou. Meanwhile, Zhou was desperately pressing down on a torn abdomen, trying to keep the patient alive. The man was on the verge of death. Zhou shouted for someone to buy strong liquor and 2 clean towels. He had to make a choice: cut the patient open himself to find the bleeding source. He poured the liquor into the wound as a last-minute disinfectant. Just as the scalpel was about to fall, a calm voice came from behind. "Dr. Zhou, save 1 bottle. I need to disinfect my hands." Zhou's tense expression finally eased. Ling Ran jumped off the cart and quickly examined the patient. The liver was torn, and he was near shock. He pinpointed the exact spot of internal bleeding. Then he grabbed a small knife and plunged it into the abdomen. Around him, bystanders raised their phones to film the scene. To stop the bleeding, Ling Ran made a 20-centimeter incision across the abdomen. He sterilized his right hand with the liquor, then slowly inserted it into the patient's chest cavity. His left hand was still holding pressure on another wound. Searching for the damaged liver with one hand was excruciatingly difficult. The patient trembled violently from the pain. Helpers had to hold him down to keep him still. Finally, after relentless effort, Ling Ran located the torn liver and stopped the deadly bleeding. Director Zhou watched in awe. He had just witnessed an impossible act of hemostasis done by bare hands. Still, even the most perfect hand-stop bleed is only temporary. Proper surgical treatment must follow. Then bad news hit again. The ambulance was stuck in heavy traffic and couldn't reach them in time. Luckily, a kind citizen offered his Mercedes G-Wagon. Ling Ran finally exhaled, tension easing from his face. With everyone's help, the patient was rushed into the emergency room. Ling Ran wanted to assist in the abdominal surgery, but after so long holding pressure, his hands were numb. He couldn't even hold a retractor now. So he went to the nurse station and applied for a day off tomorrow. When he returned to the Xiago clinic, his parents were staring at him with glowing admiration. The look made him feel more awkward than proud. They had just watched the viral video of his rescue online. That's when Ling Ran realized those people filming weren't gawkers. They were recording his moment of heroism. To reward him, his mother decided to buy him a car. But he couldn't care less. All he wanted was a full night of sleep. The system pinged, mission complete. 2 major hemorrhage cases qualified, unlocking 1 basic treasure chest. He expected another stamina potion as usual. Instead, it was a skill book, Advanced Limb MRI Analysis. As soon as he activated it, Ling Ran awakened a new ability, X-ray vision. With it, he could interpret MRI scans down to every tissue layer, even sensing irregular magnetic fields within nerves. The next morning, Ling Ran drove his parents' new car straight to Manhwa Hospital. He walked to the nurse station and calmly said, "I'll be doing 5 surgeries today." Hearing he'd driven in, Nurse Wang put on makeup early. She had to make her move first. Ling Ran, meanwhile, was studying his patient's MRI film. Every tendon, every structure was crystal clear, as vivid as a 3D model. The optimal surgical plan was already in his mind. The surgery began soon after. This time, Ling Ran did something completely new. He made the incision from the outer side of the finger. Yin Ling was stunned. To keep up, he'd stayed up all night studying Tang-style tendon sutures, but an outer incision just didn't make sense. He asked if Ling Ran personally knew the patient, thinking no one would take such an uncommon approach otherwise. Ling Ran calmly replied, "An outer incision gives stronger tendon recovery." Then, without hesitation, he took the scalpel and made the cut. Yin Ling's heart nearly jumped. The careful, by-the-book surgeon he knew was gone. Today's Ling Ran looked fearless. But soon, his fears vanished. The MRI readings had been perfectly accurate. The palm side tendon was softer, showing signs of tearing. If they'd followed the conventional plan, it would have taken longer and healed much worse. Watching this, Yin Ling couldn't help but admire him again. The gap between them had only grown wider. Before mastering advanced MRI interpretation, Ling Ran could only rely on written reports, thinking up solutions mid-surgery. Risky but brilliant. After the operation, Nurse Wang finally gathered her courage and asked Ling Ran out. He agreed without hesitation. Overjoyed, Wang Jia felt like everything was going her way. But minutes after her shift ended, another nurse rushed over. Ling Ran had been called for an emergency operation. Wang Jia's heart sank. Her date was over before it began. The next morning, Ling Ran still hadn't slept, performing surgery after surgery all night. Yin Ling was amazed. His current tendon repairs were far faster than before. He couldn't even imagine how far Ling Ran's surgical level had advanced. To gain more experience, Ling Ran quietly headed to the observation ward. Ling Ran began checking on his post-op patients. One by one, they thanked him sincerely, while the system kept granting him new rewards. So this is what they call a miracle single pull, he thought. Guess I'd better start saving for a 10 chest opening next time. Before long, his chest count reached 20. Reflecting on the past few days in the rehab center, he realized that to earn more chests, he needed to perform more flexor tendon surgeries, especially those done entirely by his own hands. Even if his 20 pull turned out empty, it didn't matter anymore. He opened them all at once. Most were simple experience potions, but one contained something special, a skill book. Branch skill, master-level neural fascicular anastomosis. Ling Ran's eyes lit up. He had just hit the jackpot. At that moment, Yin Ling approached with a new case file. The patient was a woman whose palm had been pierced by a metal rod. Reading the file, Ling Ran immediately visualized the entire surgery in his mind. The new nerve fusion skill was perfect, like turning a simple bridge into a multi-layered interchange. He felt slightly guilty using this as his first trial case, but he knew he wouldn't make a single mistake. The operation began under steady hands. Ling Ran quickly found the best incision point. The wider the cut, the higher the risk and the greater the challenge. Calmly, he said, "The facial sheath is tougher than it looks, almost like pig skin." Yin Ling thought he was joking, not realizing everything was under precise control. The surgery progressed slowly but flawlessly. Dozens of nerve bundles were sutured one after another. A perfect success. Ling Ran handed over the anesthesia follow-up to Yin Ling. Watching him leave, Yin Ling swore to himself he would catch up no matter what. When Director Huo learned that Ling Ran had completed a fascicular anastomosis, he was overwhelmed with emotion. Ever since an old medical accident, the emergency department had stopped taking nerve repair cases. Most patients were either transferred or forced into amputation. Ling Ran's latest operation was so precise it rivaled full limb reattachment. The entire hospital was stunned. Soon after, Director Huo brought Ling Ran to the patient's recovery ward. Under the eyes of the gathered doctors, the patient suddenly showed signs of neurological instability. She began thrashing in pain, screaming uncontrollably. Everyone broke into a cold sweat. Had the surgery gone wrong? Had they damaged her nervous system? But the next second, the woman puffed up proudly and said, "My 5 elements have too much wood. If the room isn't pink, I can't heal in green surroundings." She even demanded the hospital repaint her ward pink. Immediately, Director Hua slammed the table. "Then my 5 elements are missing money." After taking a deep breath, he decided to let it slide. "We'll need a nerve conduction test," he said gravely. "Let's make sure she didn't reconnect her nerves to her brain by mistake." The group headed to neurology. Yanling volunteered to help with the setup, but Dr. Chow coldly declined. "Let the professionals handle professional work." Ling Ran gently warned, "The patient's a bit eccentric." Dr. Chow smirked. "Please, I've seen more patients than grains of rice. I can handle this." Little did he know, he was about to pay dearly for his arrogance. As he attached the electrodes to her skin, the patient suddenly sat bolt upright, beating her chest, shouting, "I know. You're all hiding it from me. You think it's for my own good, but I know the truth better than anyone." Suddenly, the woman ripped open her coat. Underneath was a bright red burial gown embroidered with good fortune. She proudly announced it was hand-sewn by herself. Dr. Chow broke into a cold sweat, his voice stammering uncontrollably. Then she added, perfectly calm, "If the test says I've got brain issues, I'll wear this and jump off the building. Saves my family some trouble." Dr. Chow nearly lost control of his bladder, forcing a shaky smile while trying to calm the clearly unstable patient. Then he bolted from the room like his life depended on it. Hearing the chaos, Ling Ran and Yin Ling rushed in to help stabilize the situation. An hour later, the test results came back. The patient's nerve connections were completely normal. Dr. Chow screamed hysterically, "She's fine. She's just desperate for Kunkin's love." With that, the nerve anastomosis case was officially declared a complete success. Director Hua, however, looked serious. He knew very few surgeons in Changsha Province could perform such complex operations independently. Most orthopedic teams were too busy with limb reattachments to handle flexor tendon or nerve repair. Neurosurgery departments focused mainly on cranial cases, pushing nerve injuries to hand surgery units instead. But most hand surgeons lacked the experience, too green to take the risk. If Ling Ran could take on combined nerve damage cases, the emergency department's rise to major clinic status would be only a matter of time. Just then, Director Ho's phone rang, an emergency call. Chief Hao's daughter had suffered a burn injury. He immediately ordered his team to contact the burn unit. Everyone knew the burn unit was led by the nation's top expert, Director Liu. Cases like this usually went straight to the main hospital. But then Ho froze. The injury was just a scalded foot. She'd spilled hot water on herself. Moments later, Chief Hao and his daughter arrived at the hospital. Chief Hao politely requested, "I'd like Dr. Ling to handle my daughter's wound personally." Director Hua explained, "Ling Ran specializes in surgical sutures, not burns." But Hao Bei smiled, holding up her phone. "That's fine. I mainly just want a selfie with Dr. Ling." Ling Ran could tell right away. Hao Bei didn't look like a real patient at all. Director Hua sighed helplessly. "She's the daughter of the bureau chief, kid. Just pretend to treat her, all right?" As Ling Ran cleaned her wound, Hao Bei began snapping selfies from every possible angle. A full-degree photo shoot. She even took a few same-bed shots with him in the frame. Once the treatment was done, Ling Ran got up to start his rounds. Hao Bei looked disappointed, wanting him to stay by her side. A kind nurse stepped in, explaining, "Dr. Ling has many patients to see. I'll take care of you now." But Hao Bei ignored her completely, eyes glued to her photo gallery. The next morning, she hobbled in on crutches, holding a cup of milk tea. Ling Ran casually pulled out some change, planning to give the drink to the nurse next door. She'd just eaten the breakfast he brought and wanted to return the favor. Hao Bei sized the nurse up. Longer legs, better figure, bigger chest, cuter face. "Figures," she muttered. "Men really are all the same. You think I came here for treatment? No. I'm here to give you intel on the enemy." Ling Ran blinked in confusion. She clarified, "Director Pan's in the same field as you, both Tang suture specialists." That makes you competitors. Rumor has it, when he finishes his fellowship, he'll return with a Japanese PhD student and join Yinhua Hospital. Ling Ran remained calm. There are too many patients anyway. If he can't take them all, I will. There's no need to compete. His return is actually good news. With a new nerve anastomosis technique, we'll need all the help we can get. Hao Bei frowned. That Japanese PhD? She could do Tang sutures too. Ling Ran was starting to worry. If he had to compete with someone like Hashimoto, a surgeon who could take 18 patients a day, things could get tough. And if that new PhD was even stronger than Hashimoto, there might soon be no patients left for him. Even a big hospital like Yinhua couldn't supply unlimited cases. If Director Pan poached enough patients, Ling Ran's surgical opportunities would shrink fast. After thanking Hao Bei, Ling Ran headed straight to the operating room. His team had set a brutal new target: 20 working hours a day, 1 short rest, and alternating shifts for everyone except Ling Ran. Before long, he had saved up 20 more system loot boxes. Opening them, he unlocked a new advanced technique: precision incision mastery. Meanwhile, Director Pan returned from Japan, bringing with him the PhD student Ueda. The moment they arrived, Ueda sneered. "The air here is awful. Smells like sweat everywhere." Pan held his temper. After all, Ueda had helped him secure his training abroad. Now, all Pan cared about was reclaiming his former position at Yinhua. When they reached the hand surgery department, staff had prepared a small welcome ceremony. Pan waved it off impatiently. "Cut the formalities. Useless fluff. If you really want to welcome us, give us some tough cases right now." The group then walked into the rehab ward. Pan frowned, surprised by the crowd of patients. Xiao Tai whispered, "They're all Dr. Ling's patients." Pan scoffed. "His Tang sutures are decent, sure, but he's just an intern who got lucky with some advanced tricks. 5 surgeries a day isn't something to brag about." Xiao Tai corrected him softly. "He averages 8, sometimes 10. Ueda froze. "What? Does that man ever sleep?" Pan's face darkened. "Starting tomorrow, we fight back. Let them enjoy their little victory while it lasts." The next morning, just as Director Pan predicted, the hand surgery department was flooded. All registration slots were gone in under 10 minutes. Rumor had it, scalpers were selling them for yuan each. Patients rushed in after hearing that an international expert had arrived, eager for miracle treatments. But Ueda seemed uneasy, worried he might not handle the surgical load. Pan reassured him, "Didn't you come here to operate? Think, how many cases do you want in 3 years?" Ueda proudly replied, 600. Pan thought to himself, 600 a year? That's nothing here. These Japanese doctors are way too relaxed. He quickly hyped him up. "You know why I came back? To leave my legend in Yinhua, then conquer the biggest cities. When the chance comes, we do as many surgeries as we can." The pep talk worked. Ueda nodded, completely sold. Soon, their first operation began. Ueda dismissed it as simple. Flexor tendon surgeries were his specialty. 4.5 hours later, he finished the final stitch and thanked the team with a polite bow. The nurses, half asleep, were stifling yawns. By now, Ling Ran would have finished dozens. Fueled by temporary success, Ueda and Pan went all night, performing 6 surgeries in a row. Xiao Tai rushed over to warn them. "Even if you work through the night, you'll never catch Ling Ran. He's still operating, non-stop." Pan's veins bulged. "What is he, a damn robot? Let's go check on him." Meanwhile, Ling Ran was still in the OR, completely focused. Yuan Bin couldn't understand why he pushed himself so hard. Ling Ran calmly replied, "Once the patient flow drops, even the chance to compete disappears." Yuan blinked, confused. "But that's impossible. We've got more patients now than ever." Ling Ran had no idea that ever since Ueda, the Japanese expert, joined the hospital, patients had been flooding in. Every new case was sent straight to the ER. It became the perfect farming ground. Ling Ran immediately told Yuan Bin to take every overflow patient from the hand surgery department. Just then, Director Pan entered the room. When their eyes met, Ling Ran didn't look tired at all. His Tang sutures were flying close to the thread line, sharp, clean, and precise. Before, he used to keep a safe distance to avoid weakening the tendon's tension. But this time was different. His precision was on another level. the result of countless hours of hands-on surgery. When the operation ended, Director Pan stepped out and asked Xiao Tai how many surgeries Ling Ran had done so far. The number on the phone made him freeze in disbelief. What? Ueda's 3-year goal is 600? Ling Ran's only been an intern for a few months and already hit 482. When Ueda walked out moments later, Pan immediately asked, "So, how's his skill?" Ueda replied seriously, "Compared to Japan's best surgeons, Ling Ran might actually be stronger." But Director Pan refused to admit defeat. "These are hand surgery patients," he insisted. "Hand trauma belongs to us. Professionals handle professional work." He sneered. "That Ling Ran kid only knows one technique. A flashy showman, not a real surgeon." Ueda, however, looked at him with shining eyes, as if meeting a divine being, and clasped Pan's hand tightly. But as the top name in Yunhua's hand department, Pan could never allow Ling Ran to surpass him. Just then, Xiao Tai came running in, breathless. "Director Pan, my brother-in-law got slashed at the Tiger Gorge site. His right hand's seriously injured. He's almost here." The words hit Pan like thunder. His brother-in-law was a designer. That hand was his life. After a long moment of hesitation, Pan made a bold choice to let Ling Ran handle the operation. He warned Xiao Tai quietly, "Don't tell anyone who he is. I'll find a way to monitor everything." Xiao Tai nodded, unaware of the truth. He handed the patient's record to Dr. Zhou. "This one's my relative," he lied smoothly. Dr. Zhou glanced through the file and suggested transferring the case to hand surgery. Xiao Tai quickly waved him off. "They're too busy. Please, let Dr. Ling take it. And if possible, allow me to observe the surgery." Dr. Zhou hesitated, but eventually agreed. Ling Ran had never made a single mistake before. The surgery began shortly after. Ling Ran made a precise incision across the back of the hand. Then in one swift move, he pulled the tendon straight out. Xiao Tai broke into a cold sweat, his brain screaming every curse word he knew. It was like watching someone use chopsticks to pluck a strip of fat out of a slab of meat, perfectly intact. He tried to calm himself. Extraction wasn't everything. The key was still the suturing. But Ling Ran moved like lightning, weaving through the tendons seamlessly. 2 minutes later, it was done. Xiao Tai swallowed hard. For him, a single tendon would take 20 minutes. Suddenly, Ling Ran said casually, "My condition's off today. Because of the pig trotter at lunch?" Yu Wenbin asked in shock. "No way," he protested. "I scrubbed that thing cleaner than my face." Ling Ran sighed. "I mean, I didn't eat enough of it. Might be low blood sugar." Nurse Wang instantly brought over a bottle of glucose. Xiao Tai nearly fainted. Doing surgery while cracking jokes? How could they stay this calm? Soon after, Ling Ran refocused, his hands steady as ever. Meanwhile, Xiao Tai's nerves were completely fried. As the surgery sped up, Ling Ran's posture shifted. Confident, composed, utterly in control. Xiao Tai was stunned. This was nerve fascicle suturing. He'd only heard Ling Ran was a master of the Tang method, but this was on another level. The more he thought about it, the scarier it got. Joking mid-surgery, yet precise to the millimeter. How could someone this young be that good? Then it hit him. Was this why Director Pan insisted on having Ling Ran do the operation? When the suturing was done, Ling Ran calmly handed the closing work to Yu Wenbin. Xiao Tai panicked inside. If anything went wrong, he'd be doomed. He grabbed Ling Ran's hand and pleaded, "Please, let me finish it. My relative's a designer. His hand is his life." Ling Ran thought for a moment, then nodded. Yu Wenbin grumbled under his breath, clearly annoyed. Ling Ran asked, "Big scar or small scar?" Xiao Tai nearly coughed up blood. Who the hell would want a big scar? When the surgery was over, Yu Wenbin began piecing things together. Something didn't add up. He quietly slipped into the recovery room. The first thing the patient said upon waking was, "Where's Director Pan?" Yu Wenbin pressed for details and finally realized the truth. The patient was Director Pan's own relative. After sneaking out of the observation room, he immediately called Director Hua and spilled everything in detail. In the morning, Director Pan quietly slipped in to check on the patient. But to his bad luck, his sister happened to be there too. She yelled at him, "Look at your brother-in-law. He barely slept, and now you're dragging him out before sunrise for rehab. Director Pan hurried to explain, it's for better recovery results. The surgeon already talked to him about this. After making sure everything was fine, Pan slipped away in a hurry. But outside, Director Huo was already waiting like a hunter. Old Pan, why the long face? That scared Pan half to death. Huo chuckled. Relax. Your family's our ER family. We'll take good care of him. After finishing the last rehab session, Ling Ran received a heartfelt thank you from the patient. The system rewarded him with a beginner's treasure chest. And just as luck, he pulled 2 master-level massage techniques for the head and cervical spine. Right then, Director Huo pushed open the door. He said cheerfully, good news. There's a health inspection tour for senior cadres tomorrow. I got you a spot. Of course, that good news only sounded good to Director Huo. For Ling Ran, it was more like a nightmare. Seeing his reluctance, Huo snapped. You're going whether you like it or not. I talked my head off to get you this chance. Early the next morning, the sanatorium began checkups for the elderly. It took quite a while before they finally wrapped up.